Here we go. So I'm Stephen Carlson. This is Working from the Heart. And today we're working with the phrase, if I'm not wealthy, then I'm a failure. So, in our Western society, wealth is a huge, huge goal, aspiration, requirement. And you see this reflected in media. So most films, if you really think about it, show you a not very average world. Most films show you a very affluent world. And in a lot of our media, it just seems normalized to have the big house, the extra spending money, the flashy car, the clothes, the whole thing. In our world, wealth is held up as normal. And so there's a sense that if I don't have that, then I've fallen below. I'm a failure. Now, we're going to play with this attitude a little bit using the Sedona method and see what kind of, freedom we can uncover. So, there's nothing that you need to do except for make sure that you're in a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. All you need to bring to this work is simply a willingness to explore. And so if you're ready, just take a breath and allow yourself to be. Allow things to settle and allow the world to be as it is. Now, notice what it feels like to believe if I'm not wealthy, I'm a failure. Notice how this sits with you. Notice how true it feels. Notice how it shows up in the body, possibly as sensation, uncomfort, tension. If I'm not wealthy, I'm a failure. And notice what thoughts come up, what stories, images and sounds, sensory perceptions. Now, on the face of it, of course, this is a little ridiculous because not everybody can be wealthy. Not everybody can live at the top of the food chain. That's what our minds will tell us. But this isn't about logic, rational thought. If we dig a little deeper, it may just turn out that these beliefs are very, very deeply rooted. And they affect so many different parts of our working life. For example, choosing a career. You have to choose whatever is going to make you the most money. Doesn't matter if you're interested, if it makes you satisfied, happy, fulfilled. You have to find that career that's going to take you to the top of the food chain. You need to be wealthy or you're a failure. And of course what that means is whole professions. To be a butcher, how many butchers get to be millionaires? I don't know. To be a butcher would be a failure. To be a security guard, to be, and you can continue listing it. There's so many different kinds of ways of making a living that aren't going to get you fabulous wealth. So again, just notice all that comes up, all that's stirred up by this phrase. Allow it to be here. If I'm not wealthy, I'm a failure. And see if there's any judgment that comes up, because of course it would be natural. You should, you shouldn't. Any judgment. And then notice also any resistance to this thought, any wanting to make it different, push it away, push it down. any holding on, any resistance. And if you can, just as best you can, open up to resistance. Just let it be here. And then, let's check. Could you just let that go? Would you let that go? When? Okay, so if I'm not wealthy, I'm a failure. So for most of us, what that means, are you wealthy? First of all, wealth is a relative thing. You can have $1 million and still feel poor, crazy as it sounds. So even if you have a lot of money, you may still feel like a failure. And for those of us who have only a few $100s in the bank or less, that's actually a surprising amount of people these days. Notice how that feels. You're a failure. So now, just as best you can, allow yourself to feel the feeling of failure and notice what that is. Shame. Shame can sometimes feel like a burning sensation. It shows up in the body as weight, tension. Just for this moment, allow yourself to feel a failure. And open to that, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't want to, just as best you can, allow it. Because notice, it's been here all along. So allow shame, failure, allow that to be here. And when you're ready, notice how much you don't want to feel that. Notice the sense in which it's unwelcome, how much you'd like to let it go. Or even figure it out. So, could you just notice the resistance to shame? Shame is such an uncomfortable emotion that we just want to push it away. It's a natural feeling. So if that's what comes up right now, allow that. Give it permission. And notice how that shows up, that resistance. The intensity of it. The images and sounds that accompany it. And even sensations in the body. And notice how personal it feels, because of course shame does feel personal. Allow that to be just as it is for a moment. And then check, when you're ready, have a look. Are you this feeling? Or is it possible this is just a sensation passing through awareness? Are you these thoughts? Or do thoughts simply come and go? Are you these feelings? Or are you the witness of those feelings? And take a breath or two, and whatever came up, just allow that to be, and sit with that for a moment. For some of you, it will be very easy simply just to allow this to be and rest as awareness, and others, you may still feel like that's you. That's okay. Let that be that way. In fact, if there's any sense of you still there, could you welcome that? And give it space. and give it permission. And then, just as best you can, allow it to drop, settle, dissipate. And then take a breath. So, if I'm not wealthy, I'm a failure. So, the last thing that we can do is examine wealth. What is wealth exactly? You know, there's all kinds of images in the media, in popular culture, in the news, about wealth, about the ideal world, about the American dream. But what is wealth to you? Notice, I'm just making a guess here, but you're probably physically comfortable. Notice what you do have. This is the antidote, of course, to shame and to this feeling of I'm not successful if I'm not rich. The antidote is to notice what you do have and feel gratitude. Who would you rather be? That person who's grateful and happy and satisfied with life, such as it is, or that person who has massive amounts of wealth and is never happy, the hungry ghost? I've known a few millionaires in my life, and I can tell you that having the money is no guarantee of anything. In fact, I have to say it, some of the most unhappy people I've ever met have been very, very wealthy. So, what is it to you to be wealthy? What is abundance? I suggest starting with what you have and feeling gratitude. And so, again, gratitude is really, in my experience, the most available emotion of the heart. For a lot of us, it is possible to find at least one thing that you feel grateful about. So just focus on that for a moment. Focus on gratitude. Focus on what you have and what you love. And allow yourself to feel that. Feel the gratitude that you naturally feel for the abundance that you already enjoy. And just as best you can, allow that, breathe that, sit with that. Whatever it is that you can think of to be grateful for, focus on that. And just welcome gratitude, even just a little more. So that feels like a good place to stop. Even just this little bit has been progress, but you can always go back for more. Listen to this recording again and again. So the more that we chip away at these beliefs, these blocks, these mind viruses, and by the way, every one of us has one or more of these mind viruses to deal with because they're not unique, they're not personal. They tend to spread through the population. The more that we knock these out, the more that we, actually it's not a question of knocking them out, it's a question of bringing them to light, examining them. The more ease, the more flow, the more joy, the more creativity, the more inspiration we can enjoy in our work. Thanks for joining me. See you again soon.